Making a budget can be hard, which is why I asked Chat GPT to make one for me. The question is, how good is this AI generated budget really? Yeah, we're about to find out. Let's jump in. Okay, we're gonna throw some numbers into this prompt to give Chat GPT something to work with. For one, we live in Ohio, so we're gonna use the median household income in Ohio, which is $67,520 gross, according to NerdWallet. After taking 15% off for taxes, most months we're gonna get paid twice if we get a bi-weekly paycheck, which will result in $4,144 in monthly income, with 2 months getting an extra paycheck each. Secondly, within the prompt, we're gonna give some numbers for some of the larger expenses. $1,250 for median Ohio rent per Zillow's rental manager, $528 for an average used car payment per bank rate, $189 for an average student loan payment in Ohio per Experion, and $7,876 for the average revolving credit card debt per NerdWallet. Okay, here's my prompt. I ask it to make me a budget, and using the numbers that I just gave you, I also mention a number of other categories that I'd like to include. Finishing, add in anything from my budget that I may have missed. Let's look at the breakdown. So ChatGPT goes on to reiterate a number of the things that I said and says, let's break down your monthly budget. Please note the following numbers are rough estimates and your actual expenses may differ. Go figure. Step 1, it shows our monthly net salary is $4,414. Step 2 is our fixed expenses, including rent, our student loan payment, our car payment, health insurance, and renter's insurance. It estimates health insurance at $150, which I think is pretty reasonable if you have an employer-sponsored health insurance plan. It actually doesn't show any number for the renter's insurance, but based on the totals at the bottom, it looks like it's estimating $20 for renter's insurance. Again, reasonable. So far, so good. Next is debt reduction. It says it wants us to prioritize paying off credit card debt, so it's showing $600 going towards paying down the credit card balance. I definitely approve of that. Next is charitable contribution. It estimates we can give $100 to somewhere that we care about. Now that's less than 3% of our net income. Ultimately, I'd like to see this closer to 10% of our income, but we'll come back to that later. I told it utilities that I wanted it to include, and I think it did a pretty good job of estimating those. Honestly, they're pretty close to mine and my wife's utility bills anyway. Gas is a little low, but we have propane, so that makes sense. And a lot of people have a higher electricity bill, but ours is actually pretty close to $100. With transportation, I think $150 for gas and $50 for car maintenance is fair. It actually doesn't include anything for car insurance, so we'll have to add that later. Then we've got food expenses. Again, fairly reasonable, but I want to come back to this. Lastly, we've got entertainment and miscellaneous. Again, the numbers aren't bad. Now, something that I noticed is this doesn't actually include any investing within the budget, which I honestly agree with. Dear horses, let me explain. What I recommend to my viewers here on the channel are the baby steps, which involves saving up a starter $1,000 emergency fund, then paying off all consumer debt, then saving a full 3 to 6 month emergency fund before investing 15% of your income into retirement. So assuming you already have $1,000 stashed away under your mattress, which I wouldn't recommend doing. Anyways, assuming that you already have a starter emergency fund saved up, then it's actually good that ChatGPT is putting more emphasis towards paying off the debt instead of investing. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is a pretty decent budget overall. It gives a great start for amounts to put in each line, but there are some things that we need to correct. Okay, first and foremost, this says that we have negative $498 left, meaning we over budgeted our income. Classic noob. But did we? As good as ChatGPT did at breaking down the income into the different categories, it didn't even get the totals right. All these expenses add up to $3,912, which is actually $502 less than the income that we have available to budget. Somehow it thinks that we have $1,000 extra in expenses, and I can't figure out where it thinks that's going. That's easily the biggest problem that I see with this AI generated budget so far. Now we have $502 left to budget. Where do we put it? The first thing I want to do is bump up our giving to 10% of our income. So I'm going to redo my prompt and specify 10% to charity. Okay, same prompt, except this time I just say I'd also like to give 10% of my income to charity. Now, it did up our giving to 10%, which is great. It also made a couple of other changes, which are interesting. It changed debt payoff to $800 instead of $600, and it changed food expenses to $300 instead of $400, which overall I think if you're single and trying to pay off debt is a much better number to shoot for. Now it says we have $101 left in surplus, which is hilarious because if we do the math, it's still $10 off. We should have $111 remain, which if you'll remember, it didn't include anything for car insurance. So we'll just say $100 for car insurance and we'll put the other $11 towards debt payment. Clearly it doesn't get the monthly income right. Now I do think AI will get much better with budgets very soon. I think ChatGPT did a great job of breaking down the income into like reasonable numbers for the categories. It still did the math wrong, so it's got some work to do, but I think it'll get better quick. Even now I can input into the prompt, "Make me a budget in the style of Dave Ramsey." And it accurately notes how important it is to lower expenses, increase income, and focus on paying off debt, because that's what Dave would recommend. Before too long, I fully expect budgeting apps to include generative AI in order to help you put together a reasonable budget, but also automatically expense track into the right categories, and also notify the user of their financial standing throughout the month. Shoot, some apps are already attempting to do this, like Monarch Money. I'm pretty excited for the next stage of budgeting apps because I'll be here ready to review them so that you guys can know what kinds of budgeting and financial tools are out there to help you. Until then, subscribe for more fintech reviews and watch this video next if you want to see the best budgeting apps available to you right now. And if you've never made a budget before, take my prompt and throw it in with your own numbers and see what Chat GPT throws out.